Hey, what is up, YouTube? It is Brittney again, and it's a beautiful Sunday outside. I wanted to talk about how to pivot during unemployment. Hopefully by the end of this, I would have encouraged someone to not give up, take one day at a time. And I'm sharing this as I exercise this at the moment, as I go through some emotional and challenging days, but overall I am in a positive spirit. My spirit is light. But let me take you back to how we get here. So since I've graduated from college, predominantly most of my experience have been underneath the IT and risk world. Fast forward to COVID, um, I was pretty much almost 10 years in the game and was forced into contracting, not being a full time employer for. I meant to say employee. I'm an employee. I was an employee. Employer for some of these oil and gas companies here in Houston doing IT work, but I am hired on as a full time employer with the agency who goes out and find me employment. Um, it's a double edged sword with that. Reason why I say is because you can gain all of this knowledge and experience, which is very cool to put on your resume. You're learning different cultures as you go to different organizations. The hard part about that is that you're fighting every day of your life to remain with that organization because Texas is an at-will state, and at a split of a second, they can tell you to go home, right? The good part about that is that the hourly rate it's very enticing, right? Because um, you're not getting nearly the amount of benefits that a full time employer would get at these organizations. So they're paying you for your time, hoping that you do the right thing with your money, right? Fast forward to COVID. And for me personally, during this time when COVID came about, I was already financially trying to get ahead due to hardships that I had experienced prior to that and the yo yo game of working as an IT consultant, right? There can be times where you will not have a job. So when COVID hits, it's not just, okay, this is just, Brittany's moment of going through her yo yo. It's the entire world. Everyone is shut down, and obviously you have experienced it. By this time, for me personally, I was like, okay, how can I control the narrative to not be in this position again? How can I just take control of my future because this is not working? I knew that there were things that I had dreamed about doing. I knew that there were other ways that I could educate myself, that could possibly pivot me into that direction to financially be independent, but then also pay for my dreams and my passions. Although we may be passionate about, some of the great things as far as like being a singer, being an actress, or whatever that may be, right? But in order for those dreams to get going, a lot of times it takes money. That was my juggle, figuring out how can I take care of myself to, continue to be financially independent, but then also pay towards, allot me time and money in order to pay for these dreams that God has placed into my heart. So I was like, you know what? There are a few things that are on my list. During COVID, I can sit back, me and my mom, obviously everyone is practicing to stay safe. But at the same time, all of these remote opportunities are popping up. Organizations and companies are figuring out how can we pivot. So I just want to talk about my transition of just pivoting during unemployment. I'm unemployed again now, but I want to start back during COVID. So when COVID first hit again, I lost my job. So the requirement here in Texas, obviously, that you would have to continue to apply to work. So as organizations shifted and things became remote, that was beautiful for me because I was always thinking, even as working IT, I'm thinking, hey, especially if you had a job where you're working on call sometimes, then you're like, I'm doing a lot of this at home anyway, so why I'm even going into work? We should have been doing this a long time ago. Anywho, so I'm like, all right, this is in my lane. I'm walking to the front of my house. I'm logging in. So months have gone by, and I finally get an opportunity. It's probably 9 months, maybe, yeah, maybe 7 months. I sit at home. Unemployment checks are rolling in, and they're solid. Now, again, this was not my first time being on unemployment, unfortunately, but obviously there were a lot of people who had the unemployment checks and then also the additional incentive. So I'm like, okay, I am here at home. I'm able to make some modifications. I'm a homeowner, so I had to pivot on a lot. But I'm like, what can I do to re educate myself to not be here in this position this deep anymore? So prior to COVID, I had already started attending real estate um, school, but I didn't complete my certification. So I'm like, you know what? I have time. So class by class, I went and paid one by one until I finished and got to the finish line. It took me, the first time I did not pass, but the second time I did. Reason being is because the first time I didn't study and I didn't cancel in time. Second time I prepped and I passed. So by the grace of God. So for me, that was something else under my belt. If I ever get in this position again, I know that I need to exercise this license. The next thing that I was always passionate about is I love skin. I love skincare. Even when it comes down to makeup, I feel that the foundation of makeup being what it is and looking great and flawless, your face is your foundation. Whether you're drinking water or just your skincare tactics, everything underneath it, I love skin. So I'm like, you know what? At first I was like, well, let me do the eyelash hustle. But I was like, I did my research here in Texas. They actually have a lash certification, and I think it's only 320 hours, and there were only certain schools that was offering that. And guess what? Because the world had to pivot, so did the education, right? So there were opportunities where you can go to school and cosmetology school, and whatever you decided, you can actually take some of your courses online. I said, all right, God, you are making a way. So I am during COVID just putting these nuggets underneath my belt so I can position myself. Not knowing when I'll be able to execute, but I am positioning myself, baby, okay? So let me take you back. So again, I mentioned the eyelash hustle, but I'm like, you know what? But I've always wanted to do the esthetician route. Always wanted to go down that route. So I said, okay, how many more hours will that require? I did my research. Again, as I've mentioned, I live um, in the outskirts of Houston, but this particular school, they were based in Dallas, but they were offering online classes. I said, all right, God, I'm going to start, and you're going to have to drag me to the finish line. Help me get to the finish line, Lord. So I took my time. I took advantage of the ladies' payment plan. I did not have money falling out of the sky. Again, I've already had been in the yo-yo. I did not have a significant amount of money saved. I made it to the finish line by the grace of God. I'm just going to say that. I'm grateful for the school. I'm grateful for my certification. But that could be another topic. But I have that under my belt now. So not only am I a licensed realtor in the state of Texas, I am also a licensed esthetician. I have my cosmetology license under as an esthetician. So I'm like, okay, now what else can I do to maximize my time? So now I'm dipping into my passions, right? And I always dreamed of being on TV, but I didn't know how to do it by holding on to my integrity and I didn't know how to do it and leave. I didn't know how to let me not say that I didn't know. I was in Texas and opportunities were in LA. And when coaches would come out like for weekend classes, I took advantage of a couple before. So at one point in time prior to COVID, I'm like, okay, let me just try to get out to LA. Let me try to thug it out, Airbnb it, maybe save my money. But God it just never panned out. So then COVID happened. So who else had to pivot, right? These schools, they had to pivot for these acting schools. And then you have all these platforms that they're utilizing in social media, and you have training, pivoting. You have not only coaches, but you also have the casting directors pivoting, spilling out nuggets. And there was an acting school. Excuse me, one second. All right, I'm back. So there was a class that I had attended here in Houston, and it was hosted by Latoya Luckett, and she had brought two her acting coaches at that time. Um, and I hate that I forgot the gentleman's name. One passed away, who is significant to this story, and the other was Troy Rowland. Grateful for them both. His name was Dustin Felder. He actually, unfortunately, passed away, but he had a mentor working under him. So that mentor actually, I meant to say mentee working under him, not mentor, and created his his school, his own school. So I was a part of that mailing list. So by the grace of God, I'm going through emails and they're offering remote opportunities to attend acting classes. I'm like, you know what, God? You are just a God that just keeps on giving. So this is all still during COVID. So I said, okay, B, if you don't take an opportunity, take advantage of this, then this is God giving it to you. He said, you here at home, you don't have to go to LA, boo. Here it is online. Get online. That was just a blessing for me. That was a beautiful outlet for me to exercise. That gave me so much confidence. Let me just tell you about the school. It's LS Studios, based in Atlanta, and they're also reopening, excuse me, in LA now, since COVID is reopening things. But they were doing their thing in Atlanta. And when I attended the classes, I had attended other classes before. So it almost felt like the other classes before was like the corporate way of doing things. But or let me say, PWI, like if you go to university, predominantly white university, it gave those vibes because it was just mixed with how to get in the door this way, right? Pre-COVID way, which was not in favor of people that look like us, right? It was a lot of conforming. It was all of that. But post COVID, attending this class, it gave me real HBCU vibes, and I didn't attend the HBCU, but it just, I was in a class with people that looked like me. My teacher looked like me. My acting coach looked like me. They were spilling out nuggets that wasn't sugar coated, nuggets that told me what to do, nuggets that got casting directors to see me, nuggets that getting positive feedback during auditions from legit and solid casting directors. And it was a beautiful blessing. During this time, I took new headshots, and I knew what type of headshots. Like, I knew how to package and sell myself. And it was amazing. Even though I did all of those things, bills are still due. And in order for me to continue to do some things, you need money. So all of those things I really enjoy doing, right? And some I put on a different priority than others. I I wanted to make sure that I position myself in the best way possible. And I just want to continue to pray that God guide me to tell me whatever it is. I'm going to continue to exercise this knowledge that I have underneath me, and we're going to go from there. And I am recording this video as I'm unemployed. Um, it hasn't been 30 days. No, yes, it has. It's since December the 31st of 2021. That was my last day of being employed as an IT contractor. COVID picks up, and I finally land a 9 to 5 working at home remotely. So I'm like, okay, God, this is still a blessing. I'm able to be at home, work remotely, and as soon as I'm able to clock out, I have my license, my real estate license. So my family is telling people, hey, Brittney does real estate, and God is blessing. This first, year, I got a job at the end of 2020. Yeah, as soon as I started working my 9 to 5, I'm helping out my first client, which was my family. So at the December, I was able to close on my first home. But at the top of the year, I'm working, baby. I'm working my 9 to 5. At the same time, I am hustling in these streets. Being a realtor. Once done, I'm ready to shift over to my personal computer and work, show a home, pulling homes so my clients can see. And they had real needs, so it required me to. I couldn't drag my feet on it. When people are looking for homes and they're on a real tight deadline, their life and their family are depending on you to execute. But I had fun. Like, I love doing that. And if you give me a deadline, oh baby, I'm on it. I love it. So let me pick it up. So again, working my 9 to 5, also doing real estate, and at the same time. Now, mind you, at this time I also have an esthetician license, but real estate is picking up for me so much so that my 9 to 5 and real estate are the two things that are driving me for 2021. And I had a very successful first year as an agent. Had 8 closings, and 7 of them were residential and 1 was commercial. So I learned a lot my first year. Even for my commercial, I reached out and I got training for that. Like, if someone is able to train me, I don't have a problem with investing into my education and also paying another person who has done the work for their time, because it's going to take me longer to sit here, figure it out, and make mistakes versus me paying one of my peers or someone who I can look up to as a mentor, paying them for their time to get me to where I need to go. Time is money. So I don't have a problem with paying for educating myself. Even though I wasn't able, or I haven't, being an esthetician, I was able to train myself as far as educating myself in classes, writing out a business plan, thinking of a name and a logo, thinking about what's my next move in case my 9 to 5 doesn't work out for me. What's going to be the first thing that I do in my esthetician license if it's time for me to kick it in? Do I want to go the lash route? Do I want to go the skincare route? How much is it going to cost me to rent a booth? Do I need to bring this into my home? COVID is going up, going down, right? So even though I was working my 9 to 5 and doing real estate, I'm still massaging this opportunity because the world is changing so fast. So as it's pivoting, so am I. With acting, again, in order to pay for your passion and your dreams, a lot of times it's going to take money, especially if something that's just really not as common, right, to obtain. It's obtainable, but you have to have the money and be consistent. So during COVID, I took classes back to back for a whole year with this acting coach online, acting class school, excuse me, online. It was beautiful. But when I got a 9 to 5 and I was doing real estate, I had to step back a little bit because as a realtor, I wanted to take full accountability for buyer or a seller asking for my help. And I knew that I was helping families transition. I helped a business, but that was also for their family. And I had to pause for the cause, right? And pray on timing. Here we are again. It's 2022. I am unemployed and I am here trying to find my way. Another avenue that I am activating is this YouTube. So I want to be able to be authentic. I want to, yes, please the viewers. I'm going to work on speaking faster. But I also want to provide a service and change lives. Even if it's just me telling my story, it doesn't have to provide a service for every viewer on YouTube. And it doesn't have to change everyone's lives, right? Here I am, and I promised myself that I would control the narrative of my life. So that's what this is. That's what the last 2 years meant as far as me, from what someone on the outside can see. If I'm just naturally holding a conversation, oh my gosh, she doing this, oh my gosh, she doing that. Well, what do you want to do, right? But if it's in you to do certain things, especially if you're single and you don't have any kids and it's your season in order to learn, in order to birth a business, I say do as much as you can until you can't. So I do look forward to being a wife and a mother, but when you do all of those things, you're pretty much a giver, and which is beautiful, right? Because in exchange, you have just this beautiful, just family dynamic and unity that's just unexplainable, and it's beautiful if it's done right. I feel like God is telling me that I need to continue doing what I'm doing. Something's going to be birthed out of it if I just honor what he's saying. So I don't know how, I don't know when. Allow God to just continue to guide me. So I'm saying all of that to say, I hope that me telling all of my business, I hope that I have inspired someone to just keep going. This is me also. As I tell you, I'm also encouraging myself. Yesterday was not a good day. This weekend was not a good weekend for me. I am used to being the solution. So now it's the season for me to pivot and sit back. And maybe God is trying to have me sit down so I can be forced to birth one of these, maybe. Pour into myself, because last year I ran myself like a rag doll, working a 9 to 5, and also, being a realtor, and I busted my tail. But I'm like, okay, God, make it make sense. So again, I'm saying all of that to say, if you're feeling discouraged and you can't see one foot in front of the other, just want to encourage you that it's going to be okay. I want to encourage anyone who wants to go and re-educate themselves. I have a bachelor's degree in marketing, but, the world is changing. So, even though you may have a college degree, it doesn't hurt to go and re-educate yourself and get another trade that may be a blessing to you, right? I hope this is helping. But as you know, I'm still applying to jobs, and that's okay. I'm doing it all. I'm applying to jobs. I've tweaked my resume. I'm working on my passions. I have created landing pages for my businesses. I have 2 more to go. I have applied for unemployment. I've applied for whatever program that I qualify for. And my next thing is I'm going to organize and clean my home. I'll start out cleaning out my pantry, just a clarity, right? Because if everything else is organized, and that would allow me to be efficient, and if I handle this season right, then I will be able to pivot and I'll be ready and I won't have to get ready when that time comes. So I hope and pray the same for you. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. I want to be able to help and pour back. I don't have a calendar or anything set up, but you can definitely reach out to me on my information below. But until next time, have a good one.